Hey. Okay, so first of all, this is being shot in my Facebook group, my old Facebook group. So if this is posted on YouTube and you're finding this on YouTube, I want to tell you this is for a very niche audience. And this is being saved on my YouTube channel for my niche audience. So if you're like wondering, what is this about? I go in and out of talking about multiple different topics to my Facebook group when I do lives like this. The reason I'm saving it is because they delete them every 30 days. And I want to make sure that my prospective clients, current clients, anybody interested in my frameworks can see those teachings. So if you're somebody who is not into, seeing multiple different things going on, this is not a video for you. And if you're not somebody who, let me explain. This is and this is also another, here's this. This is called, I'm calling it field mechanics, in the sense of like, it's a really hard concept to explain, and it's probably called something different to other people. It's a hard concept to explain because there's a lot of like ethereal spiritual aspects to it that I'm still trying to figure out how to word, like how to use language for it. So if you're listening, you're gonna think, a lot of you are gonna think, if it's not for you, that it's word salad-y, which is understandable if it's not for you. So again, don't waste your time on this video unless you are somebody who is really interested in mindset on a very deep level. So this is for who this is for. If you find this video somehow, this is for people who are deeply invested in mindset on a deep level, people who've been in the coaching industry or in the social media industry since 2015, 2016 era, and are wanting to grow their business online and understand spiritually what's going on in the social media fields, as in field mechanics, that want to understand it on a spiritual level. This is also for people who understand mindset on a deep level, but are like, they understand that there's a spiritual aspect and they're not weirded out or afraid of spiritual language that sounds word salad-y or too woo-woo or anything of that nature. And this is also for people who are have multi 6 to 7 figure businesses, who are, especially in the coaching industry, who are maybe not pulling in the same kind of numbers as they used to, or are pulling the same kind of numbers, but are wanting to know that there's mindset and manifestation and energetic principles to increasing their income and their reach on social, and they know that there's something going on mentally and energetically with social media because it's gotten so competitive and people are not, the trust levels have, it's gotten harder for people to trust and all of those things. So that's what we're talking about in terms of the spiritual aspects of social media and the field. So when I say the field, and I call this field mechanics because it's like, basically think of, so if you don't fit into that category, you might find this to be word salad-y. But at the same time, I also want to put in this little thing. I am learning, and I don't know if I said this already, but I'm going to say it again. I am learning the language of how to say this. Think of like a really hard thing for you to explain, but you just get it. And so when you try to explain it to somebody, you're kind of like, this is hard to explain. And so what I'm doing is I'm explaining it in my private Facebook group of people that I adore, and people that have been really patient and loving with me and are supportive of me in, many different ways, and are just like cool with me finding my groove in terms of a very abstract, complicated thing that is very real but hard to describe. So this is not, I'm very confident in my skills, but the explaining this is going to be a process. And the more that I think this will also benefit prospective clients, past clients, current clients of mine that are, and friends of mine that are probably aware of this unconsciously on another level, that are either looking to reignite their voice, find their new voice, find their, a reset of some sort, because this is kind of what I'm doing on video. So this is not this isn't going to be perfect. This is going to be me kind of maybe stumbling, and it's going to sound like word salady for a while, but one of the things that I've learned, and I've made a lot of money having clients come to me because I moved in imperfection and kind of found my groove as I was doing it. So this is kind of like going to be that process as well. So with that being said, okay, so field mechanics. I don't know how long that's going to say, but there was a lot there. Okay, so field mechanics is what I call it, or what ChatGPT called it. And what I was doing was I was looking, and I might be repeating from previous videos, but this is just like, to ground into it. They call it field mechanics. And the field, think of it like if you've seen any kind of like sci-fi or tech movies where like you can't physically see something, but it's energetically there. Like it's in the spirit. It's like, like tech, like grids of people and grids of communication lines. And think of like social media, how there's like billions of people on social, right? Imagine a grid connecting every single person on social media to each other, but it's not something that you can see, but it's like an office online in the digital realm. And so when spiritual people, they know that they call it like the grid or what, the field, or they call it one of those things. And mechanics is a way of like describing like how you mentally and spiritually position yourself in the digital marketplace in that area so that you stand out more and you are able to position yourself for more money, to reach more people. Because like, for example, if you're positioned in that grid or in that invisible like digital office space in a way where you're behind everybody and everybody else is looking in the opposite direction, or you're like scared to fully project your voice, or you don't know how you stand out in the marketplace, or you're basing your how you stand out on everybody else, and it can really kill your reach. It can really kill your ability to bring clients in. It can do all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to talk about how this applies to mindset and manifestation, which is like what I cover primarily, but it was something that this was something that I knew internally back in the day when I was coaching a lot of, like, I had a one-on-one practice and a group coaching practice and digital courses and all that stuff that I was doing. Now I'm just doing one-on-one, but I knew it wasn't all the time, but I could see, and this sounds a little woo-woo, and I wasn't the only one, but I could see the digital space in the spirit, in my mind, in my intuition. There are certain people who have spiritual gifts, and you don't know what they necessarily are, but I like could see the digital landscape in when I would go to make money. And I didn't know what it was called. And I knew that there were other people that could see it as well. And what would happen is that back in 2016 to 2018, the landscape of social media for the coaching industry, I'm going to speak specifically for the coaching industry, and this applies to other industries, but primarily the coaching space, that's what I'm going to focus on today, was that it was basically like you get into alignment, and then when you get into position to approach the field, as in like you are in front of everybody, there was a lot less people. Everybody's nervous systems were a lot less standoffish. There was a lot more ease, a lot more approachability. Things were a lot different in terms of the collective energy that was going on. And so it was different. And people, because of that, it felt easier to get into vibrational alignment, aka to make money and get clients and to scale your business. Today, it's not necessarily harder, but people read the field as though it's harder because there's more people, because nervous systems are more tightened, because of all the things that I'm going to talk about in more detail here. And so what it really helped me when I did that last video, because I was like, okay, so basically that's what it is in a nutshell. But like the primary things that happened that changed with the field was that there was a lot more people that came online, and it's going to continue. 2020 happened, and people's nervous systems went into like, basically, and it was like global trauma that was activated. And so the trust level also went in a place where it was harder to earn people's trust, and that developed over time in the coaching industry especially. And it got to a point where, like, when you, in terms of getting on the field, like how I said, like in 2016, you just had to get into alignment and approach the field. In 2018, 2020, things started to change. But after 2020, it was almost kind of like people were, yes, mindset and manifestation and vibrational alignment was important. It's always been important, but nervous system regulation and coherence and identity, which is mindset, but it was kind of like, it was more, I don't want to say broad, but just more like you had to be somebody who was okay with getting an insane amount of business, because there were so many other people that said that their nervous systems were just not capable of receiving the amount of energy that it would take to scale a coaching business, especially. I'm going to focus primarily, I know I've said this already, but I want to primarily focus on coaching businesses and spiritual people in coaching businesses, because this is like, I'm going to go into like spiritual stuff here. So if you're like, what is this? But okay, so and to the women that I reached out to, this is where I was like, okay, this is where it gets interesting. Okay, so one of the main things that happened with the field itself was that there was a ton of fragmentation from around 2020. And fragmentation, if you study it on any level, it's trauma basically that fragments your mind, and it weakens your spiritual authority and your power, aka makes you not fully able to own your identity, fully own your authority, your power, who you are, all of your value and all of those things. So what happens is if you're not aware of that, when you go to, and this isn't just coaches, but I'm going to stick to coaches. When you go to approach the field, you can unconsciously fall into your own fragmentation, which weakens your power. On top of that, feed off the collective fragmentation, which also fragments and weakens your signal, your identity, so to speak, which can miswire your ability to project your actual alignment, and therefore what you thought your alignment work was doing is coming back like weak. Like, for example, somebody may align for 20K months, or $200,000 months, and they are doing the work, but because of the fragmentation in their own mind that they may not have fully addressed and healed, they aren't aware that their power of projecting that authority is weaker than what they're feeling. And so that weakness is then projected out onto the field. And what people, they don't, whenever you're kind of all over the place, it destabilizes your energy. Like, think about, like, if you, my mom, I've dealt with this with my mom, like when she's got 5 different things going on and like she's listening, but she's like distracted by 5 different things. It's just like, I'll just wait until she's like done with some stuff, because like, this is, you know, I'm trying to tell her this and it's just not working. It's annoying. So I'll just wait. That's how fragmentation registers. Like, she's like, I'm listening, but she's unable to, it's not fully there. Or it is, but it's not landing in the way that it could. And so the fragmentation is a really, really pivotal piece to this whole thing, because it weakens your identity and it weakens your power and your ability to get into alignment to manifest what you're supposed to be doing. So then you got, but what also is going on, which I noticed because I was like trying to, like, you know, I was watching that last video to get feedback and to help myself understand this better in terms of explaining it, is that when you are spiritual and you're tuned into this stuff, you, because of fragmentation, and fragmentation can happen, you know, like, you don't have to be like severely traumatized in order to experience fragmentation. Like, it happens. There's insane amounts of different types of fragmentation. And so anyways, so one thing that I picked up was that if you're somebody who's tuned in, you could be easily tuning into the frequency of the collective field, AKA, what does that mean? You could be feeling and you don't even have to be super spiritual for this. You could be feeling, oh, it's a cesspool of people who are just like not interested in buying, and they're starving for free content, and they're starving for survival, and they're not really serious, and it's, you know, going to take years before they're going to be fully, trust me, I don't know how the hell I'm going to stand out in this mess. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm so stressed out about finding this. How am I going to take this person seriously, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You can take on all of those mindsets and think that is your audience, and unconsciously tailor your messaging for those people or to avoid those people. And the reality is, you don't need to tailor it to those people or to avoid those people. And so therefore your message and your energy gets diluted, and your sales are weaker, and your positioning is weaker. And so therefore you're not able to manifest at the level that you could. Hi, whoever hopped on. I'm talking something very advanced. It's like talking about like social media and the field and manifestation and mindset. It's very complex. Let me know if you have any questions on anything, and I will be happy to help you. I don't know, I can't see your name, but anyways, I can't believe this is still working. So we're excited about that. So that's the main key that I wanted to just like ask you, whoever's, you know, like sees this, is, are you studying your own identity and how it responds to the field today versus the way it was back in 2015, or even, you know, now, like what's going on now? Because this is applicable to anybody. It's mainly like, and how do you do this? You need to ask yourself, like, sit down and with your journal and figure out, like, are you, and this is another piece, first, ask yourself, like, what are you thinking your audience is thinking? How are you thinking that your audience is responding? And are you sure that that's really your audience, or are you projecting that feeling onto your audience because that's what you think that it's thinking? because you're picking up on the collective versus your actual. I have a calic on the back of my head and it bothers me sometimes, I'm not gonna lie. But like, are you picking up the frequency or the energy of all of your audience, some of your audience? What part of your audience are you speaking to? And are you coming from a place of alignment in your identity, or are you coming from a place of like, I don't know if this is gonna land? That's another one. If you're in the position of, I don't know if this is gonna land because of all this stuff that I just said, that can weaken your identity. It can weaken your signal. It can weaken your ability to feel the right people and to speak to the right people, and for it to land with the right people. Because if you're in a position, like if you're wanting to talk to a dude at a bar or something, and you're like, I don't know how this is gonna land, and I don't know, like, et cetera, it weakens your ability for it to land. If you're confident, and I mean like really confident in the fact that it's going to land with him, then you're far more likely for it to land with him. And then like there's variables and all that kind of stuff, but you know what I'm saying? It's like looking at how much of you is basing your desired outcome in terms of reaching the right people on those things. Get really clear on what it is that you think the field itself that's in front of you that you have access to is actually thinking. And are you absolutely certain that's what's going on, or are you projecting? And going back to, I saw someone make a comment of like, a lot of women are shut off energetically because there's so much intensity. Because like there are a lot of spiritual women that are, and not even just like what spiritual women call themselves, but there's a lot of very intuitive women who feel a lot of stuff, and they feel like they can feel someone's energy very quickly and easily. Like there's, like intuitives, like I'm speaking of very select type of people. There are certain types of people that can literally walk into a room and feel the energy of the room, feel someone else's energy, empaths. Like they can feel someone else's energy. And when we're in a space that we're in with the collective in the field, there are people that pick up on others' energy, and so they shut themselves down, they shut themselves off, they feel like it's too heavy, too much, and they need to have some sort of boundary set up, which is totally normal and healthy to a degree. However, there's probably something going on that is making them think that that's what they have to tune into because of the field. Is it that they have to tune into that frequency? Can they shut the door on that part and open their boundary, their energetic boundaries to receive connection and data on who their ideal client is? So like, for example, and this is for people who are like not really all that spiritual. So like there's spiritually gifted women out there who are deeply intuitive, and I said this in the last video, who can for example, they can sense there's about 5 to 10 women who are interested in buying coaching from me. And I can tell that this person over here is wanting to know what the end result of working together is. This person is wanting to know about this core problem, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They can get that clear. However, when they have that level of gifting, they also have that level of gifting of feeling the mass amounts of other people who are in survival, who are freaking out, who are, going paycheck to paycheck, that are, their nervous systems are wrecked, or they think that their nervous systems are wrecked, or whatever it might be. And so they're having a hard time tuning that out and focusing on the clients in front of them, because they think that they struggle with boundary issues, or there's a part of them that doesn't want to fully close that door because that might like show them that they can not only have that kind of boundary, but they can also continue to scale. Because if they prove to themselves that they can shut those doors, that means that they can not only land those 5 to 10 clients, but they can also continue to scale that. And so therefore they can tune into the frequency of the mass amount of people that are in that survival frequency, and they can literally tune into what it is that they need that's on a very smaller level, but they can also make a tremendous amount of money from that smaller, in a lower cost product, which means that they think that their nervous system is going to be overwhelmed by making that much more money. And it might be, but it might not be. But that whole awareness is incredibly potent and powerful. So they're like, I'm just going to shut down. And I'm going to tell myself that I'm shutting down. However, and I've mentioned this a lot in terms of like on my Instagram and stuff, is that nervous system regulation, a lot of nervous system regulation, and I mean a lot of nervous system regulation is not necessarily that you're not regulated enough. It's that your mind is saying, I'm not regulated, and so this isn't safe, and so therefore your mind shuts it tells you that your nervous system is shut down, but it's actually not shut down. Your mind is what's blocking it from coming into manifestation. So you've got to look at the bonuses of if you're somebody who is literally shut off to being able to read the field clearly and figuring out that, like, you know, how easy it is to get people to buy these days versus it being a lot more complicated, more competitive, and all those things. And yeah, it is those things. But it also greatly depends on how you look at it and how you position yourself in the marketplace. So, and for anybody else in other industries that is like, how does this apply to me? How can I use this? Good question. What I would say there is, how are you looking at the field in your industry? What do you think are your prospective buyers? Like, write a list of your different types of people that are interested in what you do. And like, you know, whether there are people who are actually like avid followers of, like, I don't know, whatever it is. Like for coaching, there's people who are actual coaches. There's people who are like, you know, by coaching. There's people who are, who've been in coaching and have been buying it their whole entire lives. There's people who are just like, nah, no, not really. There are people who are massively into personal development, but they haven't bought coaching. Like, look at those different variables and then write, just stream of consciousness, what you think they're actually thinking about you, like buying products and services that you participate in. Like, what do you think is going on? And why do you think that? For each one, why do you think that? And ask yourself, am I literally projecting my own beliefs onto these people versus this being the actual reality? And if you do it correctly, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of detail on this, but if you do it correctly, you can potentially make yourself a lot more sales. A lot more sales. Dramatic increases. What was I saying? Okay, I'm trying to think here. I think this is it. Yeah, I think this is it. Oh, one more thing. Okay, so what people think is that they think because of this fragmentation stuff and the nervous systems being more closed off and stuff like that, that it's harder to reach people. And if you think that, then that's what you're going to find. However, that isn't necessarily the case. But you have to position yourself to be ready for mass amounts of people to see you and to listen to you, because you'll have to be in a very strong identity based place for that wave of visibility to come at you. And the thing about the contrast between being in a place of fragmentation and a weakened, a weaker identity, with the collective weighing on you, is that it's such a strong contrast that there is, if you really tune in, you'll feel it'll almost feel kind of dangerous a little bit, because it's not because it's actually dangerous. It's because the contrast is so intense that you're like, whoa. And if you're not ready for high visibility or a lot more money, then you're going to shut it down and go, this isn't real. Or I'm going to shut this down and I'm just not going to go here. So that's why mindset and manifestation is extremely important in this. Okay, lots of love. Gotta go.